Hello, my name is Noah Reindu, and we will be giving a presentation on Asian Americans in media, going through the decades of the 1940s, the 1950s, the 1960s, and the 1970s. I'll be going through the 1940s, mostly focusing on how the Asian Americans were portrayed in media during World War II. The first clip I will be showing is a clip of Little Tokyo, which is a movie that came out in 1942. It depicted a Japanese spy ring that that was based in the US with using Asian Americans to spy on sensitive stuff in the US, like war stuff. Basically, it shows how even everyday Americans, you can't trust the Asian Americans back where you live. So it would have ostracized the Asian Americans back in the US when people watch this movie. The following clip shows what the ending of the movie is about.
And so, in the interest of national safety, all Japanese, whether citizens or not, are being evacuated from strategic military zones on the Pacific coast. Unfortunately, in time of war, the loyal must suffer inconvenience with the disloyal.
Don't forget this.
America's attitude toward this wholesale evacuation can best be summed up, I believe, by the last 4 lines of a poem by Robert Nathan entitled, "Watch America." God who gave our fathers freedom, God who made our fathers brave, what they built with love and anguish, let our children watch and save. Be vigilant, America.
Basically, what that is saying is that even the Asian Americans had nothing to do with the war and were helping the Americans had to be put down, inconvenienced, just because who we were fighting at the time. The next movie I'll be going over is called The Purple Heart, which is a movie that came out in 1944. It depicts how the Japanese as ruthless and cruel. The premise of the movie is basically that some pilots were captured by the Japanese and were tortured and ruthlessly killed, basically. So, in the clip that I'm about to show, echoes the thoughts of what lots of Americans were most likely thinking at the time. And when Americans saw this, they were more likely to treat Asian Americans back in the US not nice.
Captain Ross, is this your final word?
No, Excellency. It's true we Americans don't know very much about you Japanese, and never did. And now I realize you know even less about us. You can kill us. All of us are part of us. But if you think that's going to put the fear of God into the United States of America and stop them from sending other flyers to bomb you, you're wrong, dead wrong. They'll come by night and they'll come by day, thousands of them. They'll blacken your skies and burn your cities to the ground and make you get down on your knees and beg for mercy. This is your war. You wanted it. You asked for it. You started it. And now you're going to get it. And it won't be finished until your dirty little empire is wiped off the face of the earth.
That speech most likely echoed the thoughts of lots of Americans at the time. And with those thoughts, most Americans were most likely cruel to the Asian Americans back in the US.
My name is Aaliyah Marie, and I'm going to be talking about the 1950s representation of Asian Americans on TV and film. In the 1950s, the Asian American representation in Hollywood was very limited. The only time that you saw Asian American individuals on the big screen was if people were in yellowface or if they were the background characters. When it came to television, there was more representation compared to Hollywood, but it was still very limited. There was only a few big name stars that were Asian American, like Anna Mae Wong. She was known to be the first Asian movie star and starred in many films. And like most women in Asian American films, she either died in the film at the end, or was a love interest, or was the mother of the love interest. Again, like most Asian American representation in the media, the women were always the love interest of a white man, always a supporting character, never the main character. Most Asian Americans either died, was the love interest, or was mainly the villain. We mainly saw Asian American representation in war films, for example, like Korean Patrol, I Was the American Spy, Japanese War Bride, and many more. And here's some marketing on the side of different movies that were out and the propaganda of showcasing that either Asian men were like less than, or Asian women were nothing but love interests or like sexual objects. And in the next slide, we're gonna talk about Yellowface.
But that was 2 weeks ago. You cannot go on or keep ringing my bell. You disturb me. You must have a key made.
It just made me cringe. I was young, so I couldn't really articulate it. I didn't know how to articulate it really, but all I know is that I felt something was very wrong.
I got to get to my rest. I'm an artist. I got to call a bite squad on you.
Don't be angry, you dear little man. I won't do it again. You promised not to be angry. I might let you take those pictures we mentioned.
When?
Sometime.
Anytime.
On the other hand, I am able to see the film in its historical context and understand that it was intended to be a comical role, understand that in many ways it is simply a reflection of a stereotype that people had at that time, and which I think we've made strides to get away from since then.
In looking at the Mr. Yunioshi character, they made up Mickey Rooney to look exactly like cartoon caricatures of Japanese during World War II.
If it was a white character, it was a non-ethnic character, I think it could have worked for the purpose that I think Mickey Rooney was there for on a very basic level, which was to provide physical comedy.
He had great physical comedy, but then perhaps maybe they should have just picked someone who had great physical comedy and not even had a Japanese character.
There's an old expression you've probably heard in Japan that says the nail that sticks up gets pounded down. And so, which is exactly the opposite of the Western proverb of the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And so there's been a tradition of not protesting whenever there are negative stereotypes that occurred. And so there wasn't a lot of protests at the time. People probably silently endured it.
I think that, it was commonplace back then. They got a lot of these big stars to put on this makeup, and it doesn't make sense to me that they would, because once you see these big stars with this really bad makeup, it just takes you out of the film. I think as a moviegoer, you look and you go, oh my God, that's Marlon Brando with his eyes slanted and pulled. I mean, that's just kind of, so to me, it defeated the purpose. You want to get a big star to get attention, but then you know what the big star looks like, and he looks kind of this orientalish kind of thing, and it doesn't quite look right.
Yellowface is where someone else, usually of Caucasian descent, puts on prosthetic types of devices on their.
Am I good to switch slides?
Yes.
But that was...
Hi, my name is Ezekiel. I'll be talking about the 1960s depiction of Asian Americans in films. So similar to the 1950s, the 1960s depiction of Asian Americans in film was often characterized by stereotypes and limited representations. And according to Gulash Boza, Asian characters were frequently portrayed as exotic and mysterious, perpetuating stereotypes like the Dragon Lady or the inscrutable Oriental. I've attached one of film that I've watched recently that explain the inscrutable Oriental.
Tis the season to be jolly. No. Not ra 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 la 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 la. Sing like this. Deck the horse with boughs of holly. Fa la 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 la. Try again. Deck the hall with boughs of holly. Ra 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 ra. Stop. Sing something else. Jingle bell, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. No, stop. Kitchen, bring food for customers.
Oh, yes, it's a beautiful duck. Yes, it really is. It's but you see,
What?
it's smiling at me.
Okay.
Beautiful. Yes.
That Christmas would live in our memories as the Christmas when we were introduced to Chinese turkey. All was right with the world.
So besides that, they were also often relegated to martial arts or villain roles, reinforcing the perception of Asians as dangerous or foreign. Lead roles for Asian American actors were rare during that time, and when they did appear, they were often overshadowed by white protagonists. Yellowface was also common, denying Asian American actors the opportunity to present their own community. Next. So right now we're going to focus on two films that I've recently watched. One is The World of Susie Wong, and the other is The Seven Faces of Dr. Lau. So Susie Wong in The World of Susie Wong embodies the exotic woman archetype, commonly found in storytelling. As a woman from a non-Western culture, specifically Chinese, living in Hong Kong, Susie is portrayed as a foreign and different. Her character exudes sensuality and sexuality, often being depicted as a highly seductive figure. The film emphasizes her physical allure, mannerism, and interaction with male characters, connecting her exotism to a perceived sexual availability and the taboo nature of interracial relationships. Susie's mystique and intrigue add to her exotic appeal, as her experiences and motivations are believed to be rooted in her cultural background. She serves as the representation of the other in contrast to the Western protagonist and audience, exploring themes of cultural clash, forbidden desires, and the allure of the unfamiliar. Next slide. For The Seven Faces of Dr. Lau, they received criticism for its use of yellowface, which involves non-Asian actors portraying Asian characters through the use of makeup and prosthetic to change their appearances. So in the film, Tony Randall, who is not part of Asian descent, plays the central character of Dr. Lau and takes on various personas that embody the Asian stereotypes. One possible explanation for this use of yellowface in the film is the speculation that the filmmakers believed that the majority of the American public in the 1960s will be less likely to watch a film with Asians or Asian American actors in leading roles. This perception may be influenced by the social and political climate of that time, because the 1960s saw heightened tensions related to the Cold War and the Vietnam War, which impacted the perceptions of Asian and Asian Americans in the United States.
My name's Mike Bradley. I'm going to take you through the 1970s. I chose a clip from the movie Game of Death, featuring Bruce Lee And what does this representation tell us about the social and political context in which it was created? Well, before Bruce Lee was popularized, Asian Americans were mostly portrayed as the sidekick in television and in movies. Due to his popularity, though, Bruce Lee broke this stereotype that portrayed Asian Americans as docile or servants. This did assist in pushing the perception of Asian Americans in a more positive light. Can we play the clip, please? So the optics of this scene become really powerful when taken in context of the early 70s. Created in a period where Asian Americans were portrayed as emasculated and weak, and African American men were portrayed as brutish and dangerous. This scene portrays both men as powerful, graceful, and clever. The power of both actors is clearly demonstrated, and even though Bruce wins the fight by beating Kareem, the scene isn't delivered in a way that diminishes or villainizes Kareem, quite the opposite. Kareem is portrayed as a mysterious, powerful, and worthy opponent. Next slide. And then the next bit of media I chose was an image from the movie Way of the Dragon. And how do these representations align with or depart from the roles and stereotypes noted by Galash Boza? The author of our book says that Asian men were either desexualized or emasculated. That is until Bruce Lee. He became one of the badass icons of the time, rivaling Chuck Norris, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and many other famous actors of that time. Unfortunately, this made Lee's legacy into both a blessing and a curse, as a new stereotype of Asian Americans was created from his success.
Thank you for watching our presentation. These are our references. If you have any questions, let us know.